But the thing I don't know that it's fair to say the military industrial of our life. I mean, here's an ad on MSNBC. This looks exciting.
There might be a terrorist.
Oh, Raytheon.
Oh, there they are. The saviors.
We see these beautiful pictures at night from the decks of these two U.S. Navy vessels. I am tempted
Brian Williams.
to quote
This is
the great Leonard Cohen, I'm guided by the beauty of our weapons.
Again now, Trump launches missile. Brian Williams and MSNBC, the so-called liberal station, is yay. Remember when Fareed Zakaria said Trump became president today?
Oh, yeah.
That's what makes you president.
That's the first time they praised him.
Yes.
When he dropped bombs on Syria.
Yep. When he dropped bombs on Syria. This is Raytheon, who, by the way, after we killed Soleimani, oil stock and Raytheon stock went up.
Well, and Trump tweeted about that. Trump's been tweeting today. He's like, hey, your stocks are doing great. You know, because everyone's trending because he accidentally typed 9 instead of 1. Instead of saying 401k, he typed 409k, which is, you know, goofy and another of many. Those are actual blunders that he makes, the blunders he makes on Twitter every time he tweets. But, you know, the big point is, it's like, no, this is just another, again, here's an on the surface. This guy has no subtlety. Hey, don't pay attention to this war. Look at the stock market. It's doing good. That's part of the reason we do this thing. They're hand in hand. Donald Trump doesn't have a poker face. He doesn't know how to not just show his hand. And hopefully it's waking the world up, because it's always been this way. General Smedley wrote the book decades and decades and decades ago. It's not changed. It's always been this way, and it's continuing this way. And why do you think Raytheon airs these commercials on MSNBC? Who advertises on news networks? People who want to get the word out about a product. Is anyone in the market for a new tank or a new bomb?
Well, let's be fair. I was sitting there a couple years ago, and I was like, hey, honey, the new F-18s are out. Let's get a new F-18.
I have an idea for a new way of surfing.
Yes.
I got a plan.
I know where we need to go on vacation. A place we can bomb.
They're buying coverage, and we all know this.
Right.
They're buying favorable coverage.
And it's interesting because we had Mark Sloboda on, who has been on RT, and he has. We were talking about Iran, and he was primarily saying, you know, this isn't necessarily World War III, because China and Russia are likely not to get involved. But what Iran has done by responding directly to strategic attacks on our sort of resources, on our symbolic needs, is they're giving us the go-to to say, we are not like you. We're not going to go and attack you and kill one of your leaders. That's exactly what we did. So we're just going to do this to kind of placate to the domestic demand. Because right now, all the United States has done is created solidarity between Iran, Iraq, and the Middle East in solidarity against U.S. imperialism. So now this whole thing has backfired because it's putting it out in the open, like he said. And is it better to have a leader like Trump, who's an incompetent leader, but he's just as bad as, say, a Hillary Clinton, but she's much more intelligent and competent about how she goes about it. She's much more hypocritical, much more of a psychopath in the sense of being able to lie straight to the American people. I think it's almost better to have somebody like Trump who doesn't have a filter, who puts it all out in the open and isn't strategic or a poker face about the whole situation.
I think you've seen a meme or two. That's what I'm worried about.
Well, it's a valid point. It's one of the things I've said. I go, Trump is just the most vulgar version of what presidents have been doing.
Yeah.
You know, he's just vulgarly going, hey, stocks are up. Who cares?
We're going to stay in Afghanistan until we get all their resources, right? Isn't that the... You don't say that out loud.
No, we're keeping the troops to guard the oil. What do you think they're there? You know,
flat out.
He just says it. He doesn't lie to us with this protect our interests. What? Oil. That oil. Those interests? Is that what you're talking about? So while there's a lot about Trump I don't like, in some ways, I think he sort of needed to happen. I think
Right.
it's like an
Definitely.
alcoholic that needed to hit rock bottom.
It was going to happen no matter what. And, it's better it's this guy who's just the embodiment of everything that's wrong with our contemporary society.
Yeah, and it's the thing. I want to show you this clip. This is like we've been trying to get into Iran for decades. I mean, really. I mean, we've all talked about this. We're all aware of this. Is like Mossadegh was elected in 1953. He was democratically elected. He wanted to nationalize the oil and say, "Get out of here, England and America." And then that's when the newly formed CIA, formerly OSS, got him out of there.
Well, there's Medea Benjamin wrote a book, Medea Benjamin from Code Pink, called, I believe it's just called Inside Iran, and it just gives such a great historical perspective of Iran, and it starts even before 1953, and it just goes through the timeline. I read it last year, and it's just like and some of the things I was already aware of, a lot of things I wasn't, and it's just like every single thing. Yeah, like they had this democratically elected person, and they had a lot of culture, and they had a movie industry, and they had all these. Then the United States showed up and was like, "We're going to ruin all this." Then things got better again. Then the United States showed up. Then things got better. Then the United States came. It's just like very theme there.
What book follows that? It's a fictional book I read in high school. It was The Kite Runner.
Oh,
that
yes.
That book literally follows like how they were talking about how the United States, how Iran was beautiful before the United States came in there, and how the kid went to the movies and all of that.
I believe the Kite Runner took place in Afghanistan, but it was a similar thing of
exactly.
like they had a nice society there until we started
coming in. And we've done it time and time again. I mean, if you look at what Donald Trump has done, he supposedly was going to be the anti-interventionist, but we can say Bolivia was his doing. We can talk about Venezuela and what they're still trying to do. Pompeo just got on there and said, I want to congratulate the president of Venezuela, Juan Guaido, for his reelection. He flat out, straight up said that Juan Guaido was reelected, and that's not necessarily the case. He was not reelected as president of Venezuela. He has a position in there that's a very minimal position, and they're painting it as, our country is painting it as, that he is the president now. They're completely dismissing Maduro.
It's so similar. Venezuela again.
Right.
Chavez back in the late 90s says, I'm nationalizing my oil. I'm giving it to the people. And we said, oh, no, now he's a terrorist. Anyone who doesn't give up the resources is a terrorist. And it doesn't excuse anything that any of these leaders have done. Doesn't excuse it. And people go, yeah, but Iran, they've backed Hezbollah and stuff. I'm sure, yes. But how much of it is because we've provoked the situation? Iran has tried to back channel peace with us. They tried to do it during the Bush administration. They tried to back channel peace with us, and Bush said, nope. They had a bunch of young people who were like, loved the West. I mean, Jimmy's talked about it, about Anthony Bourdain talked about when he went to
Iran.
Iran, the Persians were the nicest people. I just saw a clip of a guy in Tehran crying, going, we love Americans. We hate Trump because he doesn't want his country blown to pieces. He knows what's happening. Yeah. Why do you think they've been trying to broker peace? Because they've seen what's happened.
Right.
They don't want to get bombed by us. Who would?
And it's just hypocritical because we were using, like you said in the original clip, Soleimani to defeat ISIS and Al-Qaeda, these two that we've funded and helped create. So how
and backed it in Syria. We've backed ISIS and Al-Qaeda against Syria.
Exactly. And look at our allies. Look at Israel and what they're doing to the Palestinians, and look at Saudi Arabia and what they've done.
Yemen.
And absolutely. And so how do we stand as the non-aggressors when we clearly, with Israel and with Saudi Arabia, who I think I believe Israel is complicit in the attack on Soleimani. Israel and Netanyahu had been attempting to assassinate him for a while now. In the last 5 years, they've attempted to assassinate him. So let's not pretend that, this wasn't a planned out execution.
I mean, there's even some indications that they try to lure Soleimani into Iraq so they could target him.
Well, the prime minister of Iraq was talking about how he was on the phone with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump thanked him for trying to broker a sort of diplomatic peace between Saudi Arabia and Iran. But we really don't know too much of the detail. But if that's the case, I wouldn't necessarily trust Saudi Arabia to not say anything either. But I do believe that Saudi Arabia right now sees itself as a little bit vulnerable, considering that it's such a region where Iran has become this very, very independent, nationalist, sort of driven country that has a lot of pride and a lot of people that have been building up their military on the ground. So if we were actually want to wage war against Iran, we would actually be on the losing end of the strategy. We haven't actually done anything like that in years, as far as actually sending on the ground troops and having this sort of massive army. I think we would be on the losing end because Iran has this drive to really not give in to U.S. imperialism. And we've only exacerbated that for them.
Yeah, we could have had them as a major ally, but we've actually, now we've unified them. Anybody that was maybe pro-American or whatever, now we've pushed them more to be unified and radicalized. Not to mention, too, jackass Mike Pence, who I want to remind pro-impeachment people, if Donald Trump is actually impeached, then Mike Pence becomes the president of the United States of America, which means he's going to shock the gay out of people and outlaw lunch with women. So that's what he's going to do because he's out of his mind. Trump I don't like, but Trump is just a narcissist. And look, he's dangerous. Last week, we see how dangerous he can be. There's no two ways about it. But Mike Pence is an ideologue. He's the evangelicals, in my mind, are as crazy, if not crazier, than the fundamentalist Muslims.
Oh, absolutely.
Same
and you
thing.
thought that we've evolved from this since 2004, but here we have another one who is as insane as a Rick Santorum, as bad as a George W. Bush and a Dick Cheney, and he is this close to the chair, really.
And the thing I want to point out, too, Mike Pence, he just tried to tie Iran to 9/11. Shut up.
Oh, I didn't hear this.
Yeah,
anything. They're grasping at straws, and it's like, how, who there was actual evidence of ties to 9/11? Saudi Arabia.
Oh.
Why aren't we talking about that? Oh, that's right. There are allies in this horrific war in Yemen that they've tried to end.
They're an extension of the United States at this point, Saudi Arabia. That's pretty much what they are, an extension of us.
Hey, they give us oil.
Right.
We sell them weapons. It's real simple. So we'll let them chop up journalists and treat women like dogs and they can bomb the poorest country in the world with our stuff because they bought it from us and we get their oil. There. What a great deal. So one of the things I want to show here is, I'm not going to show the whole speech, but this is Julian Assange talking about how they've been trying to get into Iran and the corruption of it.
So I would just firstly like to say congratulations to Tom Finger and a very important talk that he gave. Of course, well made and politic, but I think there are nuggets in there that are quite important to understand. I was involved in 2007 and 2008 at looking at what was happening to Iran. Now, from that process, I'm fully aware of some of the pressures that were on Tom. A lot of people did a lot of good work. Perhaps the most important was Tom Finger's in trying to correct the movement towards war with Iran based on lies. And it is incredible to think back at those times that it was only in 2003 where the worst modern deception of the Western world occurred, where we went to a war in Iraq based on lies in 2003, and over 100,000 people were killed and millions of Iraqi refugees displaced as a result. Just 3 years later, the drums for war with Iran were being whipped up, not just in the United States, but also in this country. And it's thanks to journalists like Cy Hirsch and professional, truthful insiders like Tom, and our sources and the sources for journalists that war hasn't happened yet. For example, in the beginning of 2008, we published Iraq's classified rules of engagement for the US Army. In those rules, there was a section that was apparently designed, or at least permitted, for a border skirmish to start up, permitted US troops to go into Iran under a variety of circumstances. And at the time, there were disputes in the Gulf with ships approaching one another, a very heated moment.
Ships approaching one another, very heated moments. They've been trying these, remember all the false flags that they were trying to stir up in the spring in the Strait of Hormuz? There was like that one ship and there was an attack or whatever. And then, they shot down one of our drones unprovoked. No, our drone was in their airspace. We've been trying, this is what he's describing, what we've been trying to do. And just we're basically, none of the initial poking of the chests really got Iran into the war until we killed Soleimani.
Yeah. Well, and there's other evidence of that, too, where they have that speech from Pat Clausen that's finally been circulating where he talks about sometimes ships go down, sometimes they don't come back up. And then we also have the speech from General Wesley Clark where he talked about the list of countries. Iran was on that list. So it's like, yeah, this is totally by design. And WikiLeaks, exposed the crimes initially on Iraq. It exposed Tony Blair's complicity and stuff like that, and then it went beyond to what they were planning with Iran.
Yeah, and the other thing too, it should be noted, and this is why WikiLeaks is really critical, and the fact that Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning are both in prison right now. His extradition hearing, I believe, is February 25th in London. Is the intelligence community is a big player in pushing these lies. The intelligence community comes with the intel saying, now Soleimani's the worst guy ever, or they did this, or Iran backed this. How do we know? Where do we get that information? The intelligence community says it, they feed it to the State Department, and then all the morons at MSNBC and CNN and Fox and everybody just repeat it. So now it's a fact. It's a fact. Iran backed it. The attack on the American embassy, that was Iran did that. So it's really critical for people to understand the key role the intelligence community has in shaping the lies that Julian Assange is talking about to get us into these bullshit wars, just so Raytheon stocks go up.
It should be enough to note that he's in jail as to why you shouldn't buy any of this and any of the things happening. I mean, what's happening right now with independent media is like, before, when journalism was at its start, people would go to the New York Times and rely on the New York Times. They would rely on CNN when you would look at those as credible sources. And what we've come to find out is like that is no longer applicable. Citizen journalists no more. People like Julian Assange, WikiLeaks, all of those are our resources. And simultaneously now they're going to smear you and paint you as a sort of anti-government type of civilian threat. And then they go and they call spooks whistleblowers when it comes to the impeachment trial. But they refuse to call someone like Julian Assange a whistleblower for simply talking to the public about what their government is doing to them. And I think not enough people pay attention to that. I think even progressives, I think they're not making the connection between, the information is key to getting the people to wake up and start figuring out, hey, maybe this isn't true. Maybe we're not buying this. But these claims by the Trump administration and some of these neocons are so ludicrous that I honestly, the majority of people I've talked to aren't buying that Iran was an imminent threat to the United States. They're not buying it. Nobody's buying it anymore.
Yeah, because enough people remember this is the same soundtrack they played us for Iraq.
Yeah.
This is the exact same, propaganda map that they used. They're just unrolling it again and putting in some different names. And people are tired of it.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. I was at another Answer Coalition anti-war rally last night in downtown Los Angeles. Mike Preisner, who we all know, him and Abby from Empire Files, and I talked to Mike on Saturday at the rally we were all at, and again last night. And I said, Mike, what's sort of the difference in the last couple of days, and I know you're talking to a lot of vets because he's an Iraq vet and a lot of active duty military. What are you hearing? He goes, the guys from my era, all of us who joined up right after 9/11 to protect America, all of us, everyone I talked to was like, at least the first Iraq War, they tried to lie. They gave us some type of story for us to buy into. He goes, now there's nothing. They don't even have, it's such nonsense. He's like, so the guys that are like, in their mid 30s or whatever that joined up 17, 18 years ago when they were 18, 19, 20 years old, that got deployed in 03, 04, 07, 09 and all that stuff. They're all like, well, we've seen this bullshit before. Mm-hmm. And they're not buying it. And I'm just like, I posted on social media, I was like, well, Iran didn't create 5.2 million foreclosures, right? Iran didn't contaminate the water in Flint, Michigan. Iran doesn't kill 30,000 people a year because they don't have health insurance. Iran hasn't done any of those things. So it's like what Muhammad Ali said. He said, I got no problem with the Viet Cong. He said, no Viet Cong ever called me the N-word. What has Iran done to us?
It's also poignant, though, that we are at a point right now in our economy and in our government where we can't pretend that we're going down as a country. The U.S. empire is sinking, and it just seems like they're reaching out to try to survive, clawing at any sort of survival that they can latch onto, because people are in the streets right now as we speak. People are unable to pay their health care, their rent. I mean, the wealth disparity is disgusting at this point, that I think before that wasn't necessarily the case and people were more able to ignore it. But now it's all in your face. And I mentioned earlier to you Ricky Gervais and what he was even
at the Golden Globes.
At the Golden Globes. It's like, funny. That was perfect, dude. That was so perfect. That's just, it's just a picture of where we're at right now. You guys want to sit here and preach about, your democratic values and how you care about everybody, how you want equality and inclusivity, yet you would, what did he say? He was like, you would promote ISIS if your agent asked.
Yeah, he's like all the horrible companies you work for, Amazon, I think he named Disney.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not important, but he named all those companies. And he's like, I swear, if ISIS started a streaming service, you'd call your agent.
And he's dead right. He goes, I don't want to hear it. He goes, take your little award, thank your people, and get out of here. You have no place to talk about this. And I'm so sick of, one of the reasons I couldn't keep doing my film podcast anymore is I'd watch these award shows. There's these people wearing literally $30,000 in jewelry and clothing telling me about the injustice of it all.
Yeah.
Shut up. How many tent cities did your limo drive by to get to the goddamn Golden Globes? Like, we also, at the rally on Saturday, we walked through downtown Los Angeles. How many tent cities? There's tent cities. There's a new high rise for new luxury apartments and condos, and people living in tents. Did Iran cause those tent cities? No, they did not cause those tent cities.
Yeah, I can't stand award shows as a small aside. I think it's just such a gross celebrity circle jerk.
Oh, it is.
And there's just no reason for them.
This is a contrast right now is insulting. The contrast. I think that's what I think is affecting more people. I think that's why people are like, oh, okay. Like, he was like, nobody even watches movies anymore. Everybody just watches Netflix.
Oh, yeah, he was just like, this whole thing should just be, good job, Netflix, you won.
Yeah.
And then he plugged Afterlife.
Which,
by the way, I loved Afterlife.
Is it? I need to watch
great.
it. It looks
it's a good show.
It's great.
Yeah.
And when he said my favorite part of that thing was when he told us there was another season coming. I was like, yes.
but he's not wrong, because all the people in that room would have gone up there and given their speech. I didn't watch the Golden Globes. I just saw that.
Yeah,
about awful Trump is. And again, I don't like Trump, but they're the people who we had a thriving anti-war movement in this country. It was 2003. We're coming up on the 17-year anniversary of the largest global anti-war protest in the history of the planet. And that anti-war movement went to sleep under 8 years of Obama, who dropped more bombs than Bush. He set the Middle East on goddamn fire. And all those people in Hollywood are like, Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. Where were you? And that thing we've all talked about. If Hillary would have won, we'd be at brunch right now.
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
That's the freaking problem.
You were at brunch watching award shows thinking the planet's fine.
Because there was a lot of civil unrest during Obama. There were people out on the streets, but not near enough. And too many people were not paying attention.
People on the left criticized the Occupy movement. Oh, a bunch of kids who weren't organized.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you stand for?
Well, they criticized everything during Obama. I mean, Occupy, Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Like, Russia infiltrated all that stuff. And DAPL. Well, not so much Occupy, but like DAPL and Black Lives Matter.
There was also the fact that you couldn't criticize Obama either because then
You're
there
racist.
was a race issue too. So, I mean, that also played in a part. I think we're at a point where the climate has come together to pretty much like force us into waking up.
Well, we'll end
Hopefully
this.
it comes together before it collapses.
Yeah.
We'll end the segment on this. The war is not meant to be won. It's meant to be continuous. That's from George Orwell. Yeah. What a hippie. Oh, boy, where did he write that? In the Kremlin? God damn it. But that's the point, everybody. We've been at war for 18 years, going on 19 years. If you're Ron's age or younger, we've been at war for over half of your life. If you're 18 years old or younger, we've been at war your entire life. Trillions of dollars have been spent. And I want everybody out there watching this on your social media, at the dinner table, talking to friends, when they talk about this war in Iran, or they talk about, say, how are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for this? And when anyone says, how are we going to pay for Medicare for all? Go, maybe we should stop all these wars. Nobody ever asks how we're going to pay for this. That drone that killed Soleimani, how many homeless people could that have housed? How many kids' school lunches? I mean, we could go on, fill in the blank. Get the exact dollar amount and tell your friends and family on your social media, we could have bought this. There's a cut in your local community. Did they cut an after-school program? Did they close a library or a school? And find out the dollar amount that they could use to keep that open. And I guarantee you find how many Tomahawk missiles could have goddamn paid for that. All right, we've spent over $1 trillion just in Afghanistan, the longest running war in the history of the United States. $1 trillion just on that war. The first time I went to entertain the military was in 2004. I did a comedy tour in Afghanistan 16 goddamn years ago. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. It makes me so mad. All right, I've been to Afghanistan 3 times, Iraq 3 times, and Kuwait 4 times. And what it also sickens me is American sons and daughters are going there. We're going to send now what? A new crop of kids? Because there's no jobs in America? Because they've been doing this for decades. They ship all the jobs overseas, which only benefits the billionaires. So the only job you can get, and Ron's been through this whole country. We're here to tell you, there's a Walmart you can work at, there's a fast food place, and there's the military. Or you could maybe deal Oxycontin. You can be a drug dealer with the opioid epidemic. Those are the choices. That is by design. The last time there was a draft in this country was in the 70s. That's when there was mass protest for war. So if they take away the draft and just make economic conscription, a poverty draft, then no one is in a place to fight. We have a gig economy. No one has the time to protest. Everyone has to do 2 and 3 jobs just to get by. So ask the question, how are we going to pay for it when they come to the war? How are we going to pay for it? Over and over and over. Like, share, and subscribe, and shave your knuckles for justice.